an inferentialist expressivist model.
Thank you very much. So today I'm going to talk about the proto-sapiens of LLMs according to a certain model, which I call inferentialist expressivist, IIX. This model comes from the works of Robert Brandom and the interpretation that Hugh Price gave of his works. And I think this model gives a new language to understand AI systems and also different ways to see the development of research for the future of large language models. So, as you already know, recently the capabilities of LLM have undergone a rapid growth, which leads some people to wonder whether they exhibit a human-like intelligence. In order to answer to that question, researchers often focus on benchmarks like code generation, question answering, translation, factual question answering, and so on. And eventually they try to find one benchmark on which LLMs still fail. For example, you have recently the famous ARC challenge by François Chollet, which was proposed in order to increase their capabilities. However, I think that by doing that, we often forget the question of what do we mean conceptually by human intelligence. We lack philosophical framework in order to understand what intelligence is, and therefore we don't have an accurate way to evaluate whether LLMs are intelligent or not. So my talk of today is going to be focused on cognitive mental states like thoughts, beliefs, and intentions. As you'll see, the question of consciousness is not going to be really addressed, but I think that at the end of the day, if we build real intelligent systems, the question of consciousness will be resolved on its own. So actually, there is a model of intelligence that is popular in AI research, which was the topic of the previous talk. And it is a view that Richard Rorty or Robert Brandom called representationalism. So according to this view, intelligence is the ability to grasp, to manipulate, and to exchange representations which are related to the world, to states of affairs, through truth conditions. So this definition gives priority to the mental and to consciousness, the idea that intentionality is a mental property that is related to language in specific ways. And according to this framework, well, it's more complicated than that, but LLMs would be considered as far from intelligent because they obviously don't manipulate representations as we are supposed to. So I think that there is a different model which is available, and according to this model, intelligence is the grasp, manipulation, and exchange of reasons which take the form of sentences inferentially articulated to each other. So this definition is more centered on language, and especially conversation and the interactional dimension of language, the social dimension of language. So in this talk, I'm going to outline this framework, and I'm going to show that according to this framework, we can have some ways to evaluate LLM's capabilities, and also a way to make sure that they become really sapient in the full-blown sense of the term. And this is going to be related to the question of embodiment, as you'll see. So the divergence between representationalism and inferentialism is very present in the philosophical literature since a long time. So on the one hand, you have philosophers like John Searle, Ned Block, or the linguist Emily Bender, who are on this representationalist side of the debate. And on the other side, I consider that Turing was part of this team of philosophers. We have a view which is not that popular in the rest of literature, but which says that it's the behavior which is an expression of mental states even if those mental states are not reducible to physicalist or behavioral descriptions. So according to this framework, action precedes thinking, and what distinguishes us is a set of behaviors which are public and manifest, and that can eventually be implemented in an AI system. So this view in random, at least, goes with a functionalist thesis, but the functionalism of a different kind that I'm going to explain to you. So this is basically how inferentialism understands the different kind of mindedness that can be present in the world. So first we have objects and artifacts, which have only what Branham calls reliable dispositions to respond differentially to stimuli. So for example, a thermometer has a mercury level, which corresponds to the temperature of the room. So it's able to adjust its level of mercury according to the temperature of the room. Then you have animals which are conscious, which have a body interacting with an environment through feedback loops, which have goal-oriented behavior and what Branham calls a practical intentionality. And at the end of the spectrum, you have humans, us, who have the ability to reason and to exchange reason and to navigate into what Branham calls the space of reasons. And this ability is related to what Branham calls discursive intentionality. Discursive intentionality is going to be the main topic of my talk today. So what I'm going to argue is that LLM occupy a kind of strange position in this schema because they have some skills related to the sapiens, like sapiens is what characterizes us, but they still lack some skills related to sentience, and therefore their status is kind of hybrid. So what does Branham understand by discursive intentionality? Sorry, we don't really see this. So it's first the ability to keep the score, as he says, of other performances by navigating across a network of material inferences. And it's also the ability to position oneself in a specific way in this game of giving and asking for reasons. So what I'm going to argue for is that LLMs have A, but they lack B. However, I think that having B is something that is very possible to implement in LLMs. It requires a form of embodiment, which is pretty formal and functional. And I think it's going to happen soon, and that we could say that in the future, LLMs are going to be fully sapient, according to the definition I'm going to give to you. So this is the plan of my talk today. So this is Branham, the philosopher that invented this framework, in case you don't know him. So let's answer to this question of what distinguishes us as sapient, as intelligent, according to this model. So for this model, we are players of a game, which is the game of giving and asking for reasons. Those reasons are related to the performances that we accomplish, whether they are linguistic or not. And in order to play that game, we have to do what Branham calls the scorekeeping practice. So scorekeeping is the social normative process by which we acknowledge ourselves and attribute to each other normative statuses. These normative statuses are inferentially articulated to each other, and each subject has a score associated to them, which is the whole set of commitments and entitlement that they acknowledge. So according to this model, the mind is something external. It's not something inside the skull. It's something that is indissociable from the different behaviors and acts that attribute mental states. So it's interpretative behavior that is the main thing that is determined in order to assess whether I am intelligent or not. So how does scorekeeping appear in creatures like us? Well, according to Brandon, we become fully sapient once we know how to interact in a social way through a process of learning by imitation and positive or negative reinforcement. And according to me, this scorekeeping model of intelligence is deeply related to what kind of scientists call theory of mind, which appears around 50 months, 50 months in children. This capability consists in interpreting each other as intentional agents, endowed with beliefs, intentions, and so on, and subject to conceptual norms. So, according to this framework, I'm not going to go into the details, but in order to understand a specific sentence by which is asserted by someone, we also have to take into account its pragmatic force, because each sentence has a different role in the game of giving and asking for a reason. And we are always doing something different when we assert something. And in order to understand each other, we have to see what the person is expressing and what are the commitments that this person is expressing. And what varies from assertion to assertion or from one move in a language game to another is made explicit by its inferential articulation. So, for example, if someone says or does something, another scorekeeper has access to the normative statuses of B and masters the material inferences modelized by B at a given moment. So A is able to modify the score of B, and then the behavior of B will confirm the predictions of A or not. If it does, then the scorekeeping is made successfully, and if it does not, then A will have to update their score or ask B to modify theirs. So, for example, if B says that there is a cat on the table, we will expect a behavior of B which is in accordance with this statement. And if B says something like there is no animal in the room, either we will expect that he was meaning something different by cat, or we would ourselves doubt that we understood properly what he said earlier. So according to this model, there is a correct way to do scorekeeping, and this is when the behavior of the subject is in accordance with the prediction that are made by the other subject that interprets their behavior. So for example, successful communication correlates the noises emitted by someone and by the emitter and the noises emitted by the scorekeeper in a homomorphic way. So one that preserves their structure. So according to this model, as Brennan says, I can be said to understand your remark insofar as I can compute its inferential significance, both for you and for me, and navigate successfully back and forth across the two perspectives on its content, constituted by the background of auxiliary hypothesis, blah, blah. So for Brandon, communication is a cooperative practice. And when I talk to someone, I exchange reasons, I reflect on those reasons, and there is an interactive process through which we understand each other. And this is the main thing that intelligence is for. So this is for the first part of what discursive intentionality is. So the ability to interpret each other's behavior and to navigate through the space of inference, material inferences. But there is also, as I said earlier, the dimension, the component of positioning oneself in the space of reasons in a peculiar way. And this requires embodiment. So the scorekeeping model also comprises scorekeeping entrance moves like sensations, feelings, emotions, desires, and scorekeeping exit moves. So I might behave in a certain way, intentionally or not. If it's intentional, it's going to be an action. If it's not, it's just going to be a behavior. And the fact that we are embodied, that we have bodies, accounts for what we express through the game of giving and asking for reasons. There are certain normative attitudes that are expressed through scorekeeping, and therefore, if you just have scorekeeping capabilities, but you lack the body that is expressing something, you just have a tool without any use. So this is the expressivist dimension of this model for Uprice. Uprice talked about this in his Descartes lectures of 2008. He writes that something that we have to keep in mind when we talk about this inferentialist definition of intelligence is that different kinds of commitments answer to different needs and purposes. So they have different origins in our natures and our relations to our physical and social environment. And therefore, language serves to express certain practical attitudes that we have. So for example, I take something as being true, that it's raining, and I acknowledge this commitment by asserting it is raining and being interpreted by others as having this commitment. So it's only because I am an embodied creature in a natural environment with certain needs and purposes that I express that I am sapient in the full-blown sense of the term. So according to this view, our thinking is not aiming at resolving abstract cognitive tasks, like we often have the feeling when we see IQ tests or even the benchmarks that are used in order to test LLM's capabilities, but it is essentially aiming at resolving concrete tasks which are related to our contingent state and the way we are positioned in the world. So that's why embodiment is crucial. So now I'm going to talk about how to evaluate, how to make this statement about the fact that LLMs would be considered as proto-sapiens. So the first argument that IX gives for testing this first dimension of sapiens can be captured that way. First premise, the mind is external. Second premise, the mind is the set of commitments and entitlements that is registered through scorekeeping. Third premise, scorekeeping can be successfully done, when it predicts the future behavior in an accurate way. Conclusion, we can test the scorekeeping ability of X, for example, of LLMs. So what about this? So as you already know, AI researchers often dismiss tests like the Turing test as a good model for testing AI capabilities because it can be easily gamified. It's maybe too easy to win once we try to train a model on that benchmark. However, it's often seen in a too easy way because an actual conversation with someone implies a fluidity and versatility that the inferentialist scorekeeping model speaks about. And I think once we have this model in mind, human intelligence is defined as a set of social behaviors related to language. And the Turing test, for example, enables us to assess this dynamic, fluid, and versatile ability to keep the score of other people's performances. So especially conversation allows us to determine whether or not the other capability I talked about, theory of mind, exists in the system. So as you know, the recent research that has been done on that is pretty optimistic. We have GPT-4, who was identified as non-human by 50% of examiners in a study made by some people in the room. Of course, this study can be criticized, but I think that the fact that it's already happening at that pace shows certainly that they have skills that are required. They just need to be in the good environment in order to be fully sapient. So, and in the same sense, theory of mind, which is central to this model, has is a capability that is largely equal, or even according to certain researchers, superior to those of human beings in systems like GPT-4. So there is nothing to suggest that a language model is not capable of capturing inferentially articulated norms. Indeed, the high-dimensional vector space that is implemented in transformers seems to capture not only the syntactic dimension of language, but also the role of context and the semantic content of language, as some people have argued. And if they succeed in tests like the Turing test or a theory of mind test, it means that they can be considered as normal partners in conversation or interaction in a certain sense. And that's what is crucial for being a sapient subject. Therefore, they should be considered as proto-sapient. Why proto-sapient? Because they still lack the dimension of embodiment. So how can we know whether some subject is embodied? The first premise is that playing the game of giving and asking for reasons is a social and normative skill. Second premise is that taking a normative stance implies occupying a certain position centered around the self, interacting with other selves. And having a self is having certain attitudes which are expressed through language and action. And that's a crucial premise. The self has to be coherent, it has to update its core over time, its beliefs, intentions, and so on, based on its interactions with other subjects. So conclusion, we can test whether X expresses attitudes as a self, cares about things, by observing their behavior over a certain length of time and seeing whether that behavior is coherent or not. So obviously, LLMs are trained to predict the next token in a text. They can be fine-tuned through reinforcement learning from human feedback, and they can be customized by the user, as you can do with, for example, Llama 3.1. But they don't have any attitudes of their own that they are trying to express when you are interacting with them. The behavior is not motivated by any practical states other than those of the human user that they seek to satisfy, plus the fact that they are doing next token prediction. And when you are a human user that they try to satisfy, they're just adapting the task of doing next token prediction to what you expect from them, or the goals that have been implemented by programmers, especially through the reinforcement learning from human feedback element of training. So in our case, scorekeeping expresses intentional states of natural creatures, which are in an environment, which interact with an environment, and which have a set of attitudes, like emotions, beliefs, desires. Price says, for example, that assertion, we could say language, in speaking, is a coordination device for social creatures whose well-being depends on collaborative action. And we could say, according to this framework, that LLMs have a device that is of no use to them. They are not embodied, and therefore, they have no interest in acting one way rather than another. So I think the only thing that is required in order to make them sapient is a form of embodiment. But which form of embodiment? So this is a picture from Ex Machina, as you know, a movie that I like, especially because on this scene, for example, you see two AI systems which are obviously intelligent and conscious, and which are exchanging in a language that we may not know in order to plan their escape. of the main character. So this is probably a case about which we would all agree that this kind of system would be considered as intelligent. So some people advocate multimodality as a solution. The problem is that multimodality is not embodiment in the sense I am thinking about yet, because the problem is that in this case, the AI system still like, well, for example, like in Palm E, you have like images which are embedded in the same embedding vectors and treated by the same like attention layers of the transformers than text inputs. In order to increase their, for example, their planning capabilities. However, the problem of this is that those systems still don't occupy a specific position when you interact with them. For example, they can they can give you a beer, they can bring you a beer if you ask them, but they will not have any reason to bring you a beer instead of a glass of water. Unless you ask them, or unless they find a reason which is already present in their training data. So I don't think that multimodality is enough to consider an AI system to be embodied in the sense that I am talking about today. So what else can we do? So I think there are two different papers recently that that are more promising. For example, the first one is the system Voyager, which is an open embodied agent, which is powered by language models and is trained to play the game of Minecraft. So this system has basically three modules. The first one is in an iterative prompting mechanism that generates code for a robot that is behaving in the Minecraft world. The second component is an automatic curriculum that is also produced by the LLM and that makes the agent increase its skills in the world of Minecraft through progressive, iterative progress. And there is also a skill library which registers the skills that have been acquired through this process and that can be used in different situations. So for example, the idea is that if the agent already has a weapon and it doesn't yet know how to kill a monster in the game, they will have a sentence made by GPT-4 that would say, oh, you have a weapon, there is a zombie, so you can use it to kill the zombie, and we'll acquire a new skill, which is to kill the zombie. So everything is automatically done, and you see that here, the agent is exploring a world, even if it's a virtual world, and it's acquiring new skills while exploring this world. And the only goal that is implemented is to discover as many diverse things as possible while doing that. So I think this framework is enough to endow LLM-powered agents, at least with some form of contingent attitudes that they are trying to express through their actions, and the self-iterative process of learning through interaction with the environment makes LLM involved and capable of caring for what they are doing much more than when they are just disembodied, like large language models, like chatbots that we have nowadays. So the other, so this is a representation of the architecture of Voyager. So you see that the environment can give feedback to both the production of the code, but also to the acquisition of new skills and the increase of the skills that are trying to be acquired. So this is a very nice thing. But there is also something which is even more important according to the framework I built today, which is basically to simulate human behavior, and especially the social dimension of human behavior, which is central to inferentialist expressivist model. So this is a paper made by some people from Stanford and Google, which is called Generative Agents, Interactive Simulacra of Human Behavior. And basically what they did throughout this paper and the software they produced is that they create generative agents which are based on LLMs, which simulate human behavior in a video game world, which is called Smallville. And they can retrieve information and from a long period of time. So they have a memory module, and they can reflect on these memories and draw higher level inferences through a reflection component. And they can also apply this reasoning to create plans and to react in a different way to what is happening through higher level actions, plan, and also reactions to what is happening in their environment. So the researchers wrote that generative agents draw a wide variety of inferences about themselves, about other agents, and their environment. So what is important here, according to the framework I have in mind, is that they exhibit a social behavior, they build relationship with each other, they try to understand each other, to attribute intentional states to each other. Of course, this is very simple minimalistic agents that are not complex enough in order for us to attribute to them a human level type of intelligence. But I think that this is the kind of thing that we need in order to make LLMs more like us. So this research seems to give to LLM-based agents a self, and that's what is required, as I said. So to give them the ability to commit themselves. So we don't have to have a very strong sense of self here. We can be pretty fictionalist about the nature of the self, but I think that the idea from this model is that intelligence is related to a sense of being a self, interacting with other selves, having certain beliefs, intentions, trying to convince other people of certain things, adapting our behavior to what other people are doing or saying, the way they interpret what we are doing or saying. And I think that this kind of research is going in that direction. Even the people that wrote this article are very humble and they don't consider it as very meaningful for like human level intelligence purposes. So I think within this kind of framework, we have the possibility of having normative and social skills emerging. These generative agents take each other as responsible of certain things. They interpret other agents' behavior intentionally, they reflect, and they make inference about their minds. So I think it's a promising way to build human level intelligence systems based on LLMs. So this is also a representation of their architecture. So you see here that there is a memory component which plays a big role, and I think that's something that we all know is a problem when we interact with a chatbot. But they also have the possibility to reflect on the events that they see in the world in order to adapt their beliefs of the other agents, and which those beliefs are then stored in the memory stream, and they are able to use those informations in order to plan and to react to what is happening in the world. So I think these agents-based architectures are very precious to increase the capabilities of LLM and make them more like us. So as a conclusion, I think that according to this framework, there is nothing that precludes LLMs from being fully sapient at some point. I think they are already able to master language in a way that is enough for us to consider them as proto-sapient. Indeed, sapience is the capability to keep the score of each other's performances by making inferential connections between those performances. And I think that LLMs are pretty good at doing that. So what is required, as I said, is a form of embodiment, which requires social interaction between the different agents. And this is done. So I think we have some good reasons to be optimistic for the future, if that's what we want, which is not a question. Of course, here we could have a set of objections, which would be centered around the same Cartesian intuition, which is present both in the blockade objection, the Chinese room, or the idea of philosophical zombies. But I was trying to convince you, I'm not sure I did, but in such a short period of time, but that we are ourselves language models of certain kind. The only difference between language models as we know them and us is that we are inserted into a certain natural history. We have certain forms of life, which are mainly the result of evolutionary and cultural processes. But there is nothing that precludes LLMs to have a simulacra of those things. And I don't think that a simulacra would be something substantially different from having those things programmed by, let's say, evolution or culture. So is it a behavioral definition? Yes, it is. I don't think that there is a difference between a perfect philosophical zombie and us. So what do I mean by that? Well, I just mean that if you have a philosophical zombie that is able to report the content of their experiences, to make like to have a conversation and to adapt its beliefs, its desires, its intentions to the conversation, and that exhibits all the behavior that we ourselves exhibit, I don't think that there would be any good reason to not attribute consciousness, let's say, because I didn't talk about that for the moment, but to the system. I think that's how we are doing ourselves with each other. We don't expect like more in order to ascribe consciousness. So I think that if we build a system that is behaving in a sufficiently flexible and interactive way as we are behaving, I think some people would consider those systems as intelligent and totally also conscious. And that's it.
Thank you, Raphael. Questions? Phyllis?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I really enjoyed the talk. Because I was kind of curious about the attitudes that you've kind of think are necessary. At some point, or aims, attitudes and aims. At some point, you mentioned the idea that currently LLMs, right? They don't fit your definition of sapient yet because all they currently want to do is just like, so they don't have any aims themselves, but they want to just serve us or something along those lines. So I think it seems to me that the plausibility of the proposal kind of hangs a lot on kind of aims that you want to say are necessary, right? Because in a very deflated sense, it already has aims. The ones like you formulated. So it has aims to say it wants to do something. It wants to give it the best answer. And I think if you want to say, like, no, it has to be a lot more substantive. I feel like you want that to be plausible. There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot more that needs to go in there. In the sense that maybe we shouldn't understand merely behavioral.
You should understand what?
As merely behavioral.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's something I already thought about. And if you see the conversation of Murray Shanahan with Claude recently, yeah, Claude would say, oh yeah, I have emotional reaction and I cannot help the people I'm interacting with. So it seems that is consciousness is based around this attitude of helping others. So we could say, well, that's already something. Well, I think what I was trying to say is that the difference with us is that we have like personal attitude, like we have like relationships with specific people, and we have specific aims. But I don't think that yeah, I think the issue is more that the way LLMs are built nowadays is to be like as neutral as possible, as objective as possible, to help to be business oriented and stuff. And I think that's the main point, is that I think when you have more personalized AI agents, once you have more personalized AI agents, they will start to have this sense of, you know, being embedded in the world, and then becoming to be skilled in certain ways, and more like human-like, because I think that's what is missing from them. And what was the last question? Last part of your question?
No, that's the answer. I have follow-up, but let's see.
Okay, do we have time for one more question?
No, we are minus 2 minutes.
Oh,
Okay, then let's give
Sorry
an
for that.
applause to Raphael and